Guys, alright, today we're doing a story on serial killer Charles Manson. Alright, so I brought up a list of serial killers and their zodiac sign. Not all of them are on there. Charles Manson isn't on there, alright? He's a Scorpio. So, guys know what to do. Again, welcome to all the new subscribers. And, well, right down there in the corner. You can either click on the wolf or go below the wolf. A little red rectangle says subscribe. Click on it, click the bell, and you'll be notified every time I bring up a video. Get on it, get her done. Let's go. Charles Manson was an American cult leader whose followers carried out several notorious murders in the late 1960s, resulting in his life imprisonment. He died in 2017 after spending more than 4 decades in prison. Charles Manson was an American criminal who spearheaded a murderous campaign with his followers, the Manson family cult, that would make him one of the most infamous figures in criminal history. Notorious for his connection to the brutal slaying of very pregnant actress Sharon Tate and other Hollywood residents. Manson received the death penalty in 1971, the sentence that was commuted to life in prison the following year. Manson was born Charles Miles Maddox on November 12, 1934 in Cincinnati, Ohio, to Kathleen Maddox, a 16-year-old girl who was both an alcoholic and a prostitute. Kathleen later married William Manson, but the marriage ended quickly and Charles was placed in a boys' school at age 12. Rejected in his attempts to return to his mother, Charles soon living on the streets and getting by through petty crime. Over the next 20 years, Manson spent time in and out of reform schools and prisons for various crimes. He was released from prison on March 21, 1967, and moved to San Francisco. The family was a group of around 100 followers of Manson who shared a passion for an unconventional lifestyle and habitual use of hallucinogenic drugs such as LSD and magic mushrooms. The Manson family eventually moved from San Francisco to a deserted ranch in the San Fernando Valley. Manson's followers also included a small, hardcore unit of impressionable young girls. They began to believe, without question, Manson's claims that he was Jesus and his prophecies of a race war. Manson was influenced not only by drugs such as LSD, but by artworks and music of the time, most notably the Beatles' song Helter Skelter from their 1968 White Album, Helter Skelter, the true story of the Manson murders, later the title of the best-selling book about Manson and his crimes, written by Vincent Bugliosi. Paul McCartney has said that the playground slide in Helter Skelter was a metaphor for the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Manson, however, interpreted the lyrics of Helter Skelter as an incitation to begin a race war. He turned the album and lyrics to justify his scheme to guide his followers to murder. Manson had a strong belief and interest in the notion of Armageddon from the Book of Revelations, and also explored the teachings of Scientology and more obscure cult churches such as the Church of the Final Judgment. In many ways, Manson reflected personality traits and obsessions that were associated with gurus of cult quasi-religious groups that began to merge in the 1960s. He was pathologically deluded into believing that he was a harbinger of doom regarding the planet's future. Before Manson's famous murderous spree, Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys had allowed Manson and several members of his family to stay at his house after picking up two female members of the family who had been hitchhiking. It was through this association that Manson got the opportunity to audition for Terry Melcher, son of Doris Day, and a friend, producer of the popular 1960s band, the Beach Boys, who was living at Polanski's house at the time. Melcher wasn't interested in singing a contract with Manson. Manson allegedly did record some music at Dennis's brother Brian Wilson's home studio. The Beach Boys released a song written by Manson entitled Cease to Exist, renamed Never Learn Not to Love on their 1969 album 2020 as a single B-side. The Manson family included Manson and his young, loyal disciples is thought to have carried out some 35 killings. Most of their cases were never tried, in part of lack of evidence. The perpetrators had also already been sentenced for life for killing on August 9, 1969. Tate, writer Wojciech Frykowski, his partner, coffee bean heiress Abigail Folger, and celebrity hairstylist J.C. Sebring, and two more victims on August 10, 1969. Wealthy supermarket executive Leno LaBianca and his wife Rosemary. In August 1969, Manson gathered a group of his most loyal family followers to carry out his massacre along Hollywood's elite and beautiful people. The first of Manson's victims was murdered at the home Polanski had rented, located at 10050 CeeLo Drive in Benedict Canyon, an area just north of Beverly Hills. Polanski was away in London shooting a film, and the four victims had just returned home from dinner at the time of the murder. While Manson himself took no part in the actual killings, he directed four of his most obedient followers: Charles Tex Watson, Susan Aitkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, to the address and directed them to kill everyone. According to one of the family members' statements, the Polanski household had been targeted because it represented the showbiz world that had rejected Manson. Kasabian was horrified by watching the shooting of the boy, and she remained outside to keep watch. Kasabian acted as a getaway driver and was to become a star witness during the trial. When the other three broke into the house, they herded Tate, Frykowski, Folgers, and Sebring into the living room, tied them up. Sebring was shot and brutally kicked as he tried to defend Tate. During the terrifying murder spree, both Frykowski and Folger managed to escape from the house, but were chased and stabbed to death. In the trial, Kasabian described how she saw Frykowski staggering out of the house, covered in blood, and was horrified at the sight. She told him she was sorry, but despite his pleas to his attacker to stop, the victim was bludgeoned repeatedly. Folger escaped from the house with terrible injuries, but was caught on the front lawn and stabbed 28 times. 8 months pregnant, Sharon Tate pleaded for the life of her unborn child. She was mercilessly stabbed in the stomach by Aitkins. Kasabian told of Aitkins' chilling words to Sharon Tate before she stabbed her. "Look, bitch, I have no mercy for you. You're going to die, and you better get used to it." Aitkins used Tate's blood to write the word pig on the front door. However, instead of this brutal massacre setting the pathological Mason, he criticized the murderers, for being sloppy. The following night, Manson took family members Watson, Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten to the Los Feliz address of the LaBiancas and the couple was murdered in a similar horrifying fashion. Ironically, Manson and his family were arrested not on suspicion, believe it or not, of the Tate and LaBianca murders, but believe it or not, on belief that they had vandalized a portion of the Death Valley National Park while they were hiding out in the Mojave Desert. In 1969, the county sheriff had taken them into custody, not realizing that they were involved in the heinous murders. But it was through the confession of Susan Akins, while held in detention on suspicion of murdering Gary Heineman during an unrelated incident, that led detectives to realize that Manson and his followers were involved in the killings. Various motivations were examined during the course of the trial. The most feasible was that Manson's pathological ego, insanity, and belief of Armageddon were influences that led him to leave behind a trail of destruction. Manson believed that he was a new messiah, and that after a nuclear war attack, he and his followers would be saved hiding in a secret world under the desert. His prophetic visions include a belief that a race war would result in a black victory, and Manson, along with his family members, would have to mentor the black community as they lack experience to run the planet. As Mason and the family were able to be the beneficiaries of the race war, he told his followers that they had to help initiate it. According to defense witness and killer Van Houten, this was the primary reason why they murdered the LaBiancas. Sorry, guys. Mason had taken the wallet of the murdered Rosemary LaBianca, with the intention that he would deposit it in a section of LA where an African American might find it, use it, and then possibly have the murders pinned on them. Later in court, Van Houten, who was just 19 when she took part in the LaBianca killings, alleged that Manson had taken advantage of her invulnerably and a dislike for her mother. Although she believed, like all the other members, that he was a man of vision. 30 years later, during a parole board hearing, Van Houten said she was horrified by what she had done that night and desperately wanted to redeem herself. She was denied parole in 2006 and again in 2010. Susan Aiken admitted in initial conversations with fellow prisoners that she had wanted to cut out Tate's unborn baby, but didn't have the time. She also revealed that the other grisly acts were to be perpetrated against the victims, and that a list of other high-profile Hollywood stars were on the list to be killed and mutilated. These included Elizabeth Taylor and husband Richard Burton, Frank Sinatra, Steve McQueen, and Tom Jones. When asked why they wanted to kill celebrities, Atkins replied that the Manson family wanted to commit murders that would shock the world and make people take notice. The trial began June 1970 with lawyer Ronald Hughes named as the attorney for Manson and Van Houten. Hughes soon dropped Manson as a client, reportedly because he felt he could convince the jury that Van Houten had been unduly influenced by the family leader. The move may have cost him his life. Late in the year, Hughes went camping and disappeared. His decomposed body turned up several months later. It was thought that he fell victim of a retaliation killing by members of Manson's family. During the trial, Manson released an album titled Lie in an effort to raise money for his defense. He revealed in the media attention and during court proceedings he turned up with an X carved into his forehead. Some of his female followers copied the act and shaved their heads, sometimes sitting outside the courthouse. The X was gradually modified until it turned into a swastika. Throughout the trial, the killers often giggled and exchanged grimaces with Manson, showing no remorse for their crimes. On January 25th, 1971, Manson was convicted of first-degree murder for directing the deaths of the Tate LaBianca victims. He was sentenced to death, but it was automatically commuted to life in prison after California Supreme Court invalidated all death sentences prior to 1972. He was sentenced to life in prison and spent the next 4 decades behind bars. Kasabian was granted immunity for her part as a star witness. Susan Atkins was sentenced to death, but her sentence was later commuted to life in prison. She was incarcerated from 1969 until her death in 2009. In 1955, between prison sentences, Manson married Rosalie Jean Willis, a 17-year-old hospital waitress. The couple moved to California and had a son, Charles Manson Jr., who committed suicide in the 1990s. By 1956, Willis had left their child to be with her new lover, and she later divorced Manson. In 1959, Manson married a prostitute, Leona Ray Stevens, otherwise known as Candy, with whom he had a second son, Charles Luther Manson. Stevens divorced Manson in 1963. Okay, here we go. Girlfriend in prison. In a 2013 interview with Rolling Stone magazine, Afton Burton, who called herself Star, claimed that she and Manson were in a relationship, telling the reporter, "I'll tell you straight up, Charlie and I are going to get married. When that will be, we don't know. But I take it very seriously. Charlie is my husband. Charlie told me to tell you this." At the young age of just 19 years old, Starr had moved from Illinois to Corcoran, California, to be near the prison where Manson was incarcerated. And she also ran multiple websites aimed at securing his release. In November 2014, a 26-year-old Starr and 80-year-old Manson obtained a marriage license. However, their marriage license expired in 2015. And allegations were made in February of that year by writer Daniel Simone that Starr primarily intended to marry Manson so she could publicly display his corpse for profit after his death. Manson's wife, Starr, later told Inside Edition the nuptials were still on, while her mother disputed Simone's claims. In a Rolling Stone story, their marriage never did come to pass before Manson's death. Manson died of natural causes on November 2017. He had been in prison for more than 40 years for his crimes. Days earlier, Manson had been admitted to a hospital in Bakersfield, California. However, no details about his medical condition or his location were disclosed due to privacy and security reasons. The longtime prisoner had also been hospitalized earlier in the year. Manson has been serving time in Corcoran State Prison in California since 1971. He was denied parole for the 12th time in 2012. Around the 4 months after Manson's death, the Kern County Superior Court of California sought to determine who had the right to claim the notorious cult leader's body. 4 people expressed their interest, including 2 who claimed to be his son. Okay, hold on. Now, if you remember correctly, thinking back, he did have 2 sons, but one committed suicide. A little fishy there. One who demonstrated he was a grandson. Well, that makes a difference right there. And the 4th who said he was a longtime pen pal. Well, this is a family thing, not a pen pal thing. He shouldn't even be there. The matter was further complicated by the submission of wills. In March 2018, the court awarded Manson's body to his grandson, Jason Freeman, the only child of Charles Manson Jr., a resident of Bradenton, Florida. Freeman told the local news channel he planned to cremate his grandfather's body and scatter the ashes in an undisclosed location. Still, just a teenager in 1951, Manson began spending time in prison. Early on, before he discovered the benefits of being a model prisoner, he was considered dangerous. He would eventually spend half of his first 32 years of his life behind bars. Manson was described by probation reports as suffering from a marked degree of rejection, instability, and psychic trauma, and constantly striving for status and securing some kind of love. Other descriptions include unpredictable and safe only under supervision. From 1958, Manson was in and out of jail for a variety of offenses, including pimping and passing stolen checks. And he was sent to McNeil Island Prison in Washington State for 10 years. It was while he was incarcerated that Manson learned how to read music and play the guitar. Guys, welcome. Well, if you made it this far, made it to the end, it's pretty good. You know, this is the longest video I've ever done.
It is really the longest. But anyways, for all you new people, again, get down there and subscribe. Alright? You subscribing will really help out this channel. And when you subscribe, hit the bell. You'll be notified when I bring up another video. Sorry. Anyways, until the next one, which I'll be starting it today. Okay, so get on it, subscribe, hit the bell, and as soon as I get that one done today, tomorrow, tonight, whenever, you'll be notified. Peace. I'm out.